read
I
it.
don't know. Alex picked out. She picked out like 3 jackets. I figured this was the least offensive.
With that, we'll start with Steve Gelbs.
Steve, we had the opportunity to speak to one of Bud's daughters earlier. Just why was it so important to the organization to honor Buddy in this way?
Yeah, I mean, listen, Bud is, when you think about the history of the Mets, I mean, Bud Harrelson's just such an important part of that. And so it just seemed like the right thing to do. And you know, he played on the 69 team. He played on the 73 team. He was a coach on the 86 team. All great moments for the team. And so, you know, we just felt it was the right thing to do.
You've talked a lot about having a plan for the next number of years. When you went into this offseason, do you all feel differently about your expectations for the year now at the end of the offseason than you thought you would going into it?
You know, I think it's pretty consistent. I mean, we knew there were some constraints given contracts that we're paying for that are, you know, obviously run off at the end of this year and or maybe at the end of next year. And so there were some money constraints, right? I mean, at some point, you know, everyone's got a budget, but generally, you know, I'm really pleased at what we've created, the depth on this team. You know, we've talked about the defense is going to be so much better, and so you can imagine there'll be a lot of games that we're going to be in it. Our bullpen's deeper, and I think to play over 162 games, you need that. And so I think you know it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And so I think we built a club that's going to be there in September.
Bruce?
Steve, you used the term reset a lot during the offseason.
Well, you used it. I didn't.
I'm asking
Okay.
you
Okay.
if that's a fair word or how you would view the upcoming season.
You know, I don't view it as a reset. I view it as, you know, sort of, I mean, resetting, I would call it we're transitioning, okay, and yet still being highly competitive. And I think that's a hard thing to do. And you know, based on what I see on the roster, I think we've accomplished that.
Tony?
I think this is your 4th opening day as owner. How, if at all, has your perspective on this day changed over the years?
You know, as you get a veteran, obviously the first one is a lot different than the 4th one. But there's still like chills. You walk around the park and the fans are excited, and you can just see, you know, it's hopeful. We're undefeated. We haven't lost a game yet. It's fantastic. So, yeah, listen, it's a rite of spring, and you know, baseball. You know, our fans love baseball. I love baseball, and so you know, I get excited because I get to watch baseball again.
Anthony?
Steve, you proceeded in here by David and Carlos. Do you see those guys now as, you know, hey, 10 years from now you could still have the same management team? And how different is that from the last 4 years we've had a lot of front office and
Listen, that would be, you know, every team is looking for stability. I mean, that's my goal. I think we have people in place throughout the organization that's going to create that. You know, in any business, you don't want a lot of change, okay, because it's just disruptive to the organization. And so I think we've got the right people in place, and I would anticipate that it'll be a lot less turnover than we've seen in the past.
Disha?
Just given that the team is transitioning and there are fewer superstars, fewer future Hall of Famers, do you think this team could excel with less pressure on them this season?
Well, you know, the expectations were pretty high. I don't think it was a pressure thing last year. I just think that we got underperformance, and you know, just put it together. Whatever reason, it didn't work. You know, I'm hopeful that we've got a team that, enjoys playing together, and not that they didn't enjoy playing together last year, but for some reasons, you know, you have good seasons and bad seasons, and it's hard to predict. And so I'm hopeful. I think it's a good group of guys. I think it's going to be a very athletic team, and so we'll see what happens.
Pat on the right.
Steve, can you describe your level of excitement with the addition now of JD Martinez? Brandon Nimmo said you texted him, Francisco Lindor, and Pete Alonso, just the term name JD Martinez. So can you just describe how excited you are to now have him
I
on
think
your
I said more than that, but I didn't use just JD Martinez. But yeah, listen, I mean, I knew they'd be excited by it. I wanted them to know before it actually broke, and they were, and certainly Pete is, and so listen, that's good, right? I mean, we obviously lengthened the lineup, and with somebody who's a professional, someone who's performed on all levels. And just from a locker room presence and from a teaching presence, we're going to get added benefit.
Hannah?
You've always had like a pretty direct line of communication with the fans, and you mentioned walking around, seeing them on opening day. What do fans say to you now, this year?
They're still pretty supportive. I mean, I'm waiting for that to run out, but I mean, we got to win at some point. But and listen, I think the goal is to make the playoffs and be there year in and year out. And I think we're going to, over time, accomplish that. I think what we're building here is something that's sustainable. I talked about our farm system being a lot better, and you need a combination of veterans and young players to make the roster work. You can't just do it all in free agency. The numbers don't work. And so I'm encouraged by what we're developing. I'm encouraged by how we're making our players better in the farm system and up here too. And so, there's a lot of stuff going on organizational-wise that is, I think, the type of stuff that creates an elite team.
Do you think fans get that? Do they see the plan?
Well, they'll get it when they get it. I mean, they're pretty, I wouldn't sell short our fans. They're pretty sophisticated. And generally, I think people understand what we're doing and are supportive of it.
Abby on the left.
When you were at spring training this year, what did you like about some of the prospects that are coming through the pipeline, and just what in terms of development have you guys instituted since you have been around that you are excited about?
Well, I mean, the depth in our young pitching. I mean, we've got 8 to 10 prospects down in the minor leagues that hopefully will develop into major leaguers. And I look at it as a numbers game. I mean, if we just have enough of them, some are going to work out. Can't tell you who. And on top of that, I mean, these pitchers are learning new pitches, learning new pitching shapes. Their biomechanics are improving, right? From the work that's being done in our lab, so these are all like small. They're improvements that you can't measure today, but over time, I suspect we'll see an improvement in performance.
Manny in the center.
What do you like from what you've seen from Carlos Mendoza during spring training, and just generally how he's managing the team?
He's a great guy. He has an incredible way to relate to everybody. I think that matters. It's certainly going to matter from a culture point of view, and yet he's able to deliver the messages that he needs to deliver. And so I think that's a pretty powerful combination. And so my experience with him has been great. I enjoy the conversation, open to ideas, wants interaction. And so, I'm pretty pleased with how it's going so far.
Tony on the right.
I had a follow-up on a group chat you have with some of your star
Okay.
players. How often do you use it? What else have you used it for?
That was pretty. I mean, usually I do it one-on-one. I guess I did it for efficiency, and so what the hell, right? Might as well just send one text out. So I mean, usually I usually interact, by text, individually.
How often do you do that?
Depends, I mean, off season maybe a little less. During the season, just wishing guys well, great game, that type of stuff. I just try to, not be too invasive, but just to know I think they enjoy the interaction. I enjoy it, so why not?
Tim in the front.
What did you think of MLB's finding that they put out in January about the Mets and falsifying injuries last year?
Well, I mean, obviously, it was unfortunate, and that's the fun. They made that conclusion, and Listen, I'm glad that we caught it in time. I mean, obviously, we want to do things in the right way here. We want to carry ourselves with integrity, and frankly, I don't think it was. I think the competitive juices come out and in baseball, and sometimes, maybe, in that case, in my view, it was over the line, and it's certainly not the way we want to operate.
Peter on the left.
Steve, going back to JD Martinez, obviously it was a prolonged free agency for him. Just what kind of was the process like in finally getting that deal done? What made it the right time for you to sign him?
Well, we weren't, obviously, they were seeking either a 2-year deal or a deal that was much more expensive than what we ended up getting JD for. And it was one of those things where we keep talking about being opportunistic, and I think that was an example of that. It came down to the price that was reasonable. You got to remember, I'm in the 110% tax, so it's not that price. It's times 2 plus. And so you can't do too many of those because it just blows the budget out. And obviously you still want to leave flexibility for during the year. And so, but it came down to a level where we said, why not?
Bruce in the front.
Steve, is winning in baseball tougher than you thought?
Yes. Okay. I mean, there's so many variables in human performance. I mean, you can write it down on a piece of paper, but in the end, between injuries and variability of performance, you just never know. And you never know how is the club going to gel and all that type of stuff. So that's why I keep coming back to sustainability, developing our farm system where we have lots of options, lots of possibilities, and incorporate that with, being selective in the free agent market to build, I think, should be a quality team. And all you can do is put the best team you can. But like I always say, I can't hit and I can't pitch.
Disha.
Are you glad the market is closed today so you can fully enjoy it?
I was so happy. I love days off in the market. Okay, so right, I can get to relax, enjoy the game. I don't have to look at the what's going on in the market. So yeah, it's fantastic. Just I get to chill out, get to focus on baseball.
Hannah.
You said you want to leave yourself flexibility to improve during the season. Do you feel like you still have payroll flexibility to improve during the season?
We'll make that decision when we get there. We know everything is 110 cents on the dollar, so obviously that's a decision, right? An expensive decision, but I am competitive, and so I mean, if the right thing comes along at the right moment, we'll explore it.
Manny in the middle.
Is the goal to eventually get out of that tax bracket, like to reset the luxury tax?
I mean, the only way you're getting out of it is if you have a good farm system, right? So that you can actually put players that are, reasonably cost controlled, and if you should have a blend of that, and I think most teams do. Our farm system was probably not one of the best farm systems a few years ago, and that was tougher to do. And so, in the end, we want to put the best ball players on the field. And if it turns out that it's, coming out of our farm system, even better.
Tim?
Just to, I guess, drill down on that, the first threshold of the luxury tax in a Mets context is not that high.
Right.
Can you imagine ever getting all the way under and completely resetting?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, it seems far away. It just seems like, that could be hard to do. I mean, I think the only way you really could do it would be if the farm system really produced players in volume, so that's possible. We don't have to do that. I'm perfectly, I'm happy to finance this in a way that, that isn't a goal of mine. Would it be, would it be, if it were to happen, that'd be fantastic. But I mean, the reality is you got to expect something in the middle someplace, right? I mean, I don't, spending $375 million we did last year seemed a little bit over the top, and then on top of it, the problem with free agency is you're dealing with the aging curve, and so you just don't know when your players are, if you have enough free agents, eventually you're going to look like the free agent curve, and sometimes that doesn't work out very well. I mean, over time you get a declining performance, and yet you're still paying a lot of money for that. And so, we got to find a blend that works. And I'm not afraid to spend money, but I just don't want to be just spending money for the sake of. I want this organization to be run efficiently. I want it to be run professionally. And I really, and I've said this for a while, I truly believe the only way to get there in sustainability is developing talent. No different than my hedge fund, where we develop a lot of talent as opposed to trying to buy free agents from other firms.
Steve?
Steve, back to the JD Martinez signing one more time.
Yep.
You mentioned the excitement of the three that you texted and Pete specifically. For those guys, do you feel like it was important, beyond just what type of a player JD Martinez is, to show to them that, hey, we're not punting on this season, that we're bringing guys in because we do want to win this year as well?
Yeah, I don't think that was the driver. I mean, I would say that was a benefit of getting JD, that obviously the players were excited by playing with him. And Pete's, been pretty clear that, he'd like some, people behind him that, it could have been him or somebody else. Hopefully one of our young players would have developed into that. And so, but, he's a proven talent, great presence in the locker room. And so, it was an opportunity that we just couldn't pass up. And you could tell by the reactions that the players agreed.
Laura?
You mentioned being in there in September. Are there any other quantifiable benchmarks that you feel that you have to hit so you can look back on the season and say, okay, this was a success?
I think the goal is to make the playoffs. I mean, pretty simple. Let's not overthink this. If we don't make the playoffs, obviously I'd be disappointed.
Abby?
Has Pete expressed to you or David directly that he would like lineup protection?
Well, if I'm him, I would want that, and so Pete was excited that we got him. Okay, listen, Pete's in his contract year, right? His free agency year, so he certainly would. I can't blame him for wanting that type of support behind him, and that's good for the team too, right? Because now we've lengthened the lineup and offensively, we're much stronger.
Steve, thank you very much for your time this morning.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
This concludes the pregame portion of today's opening day press conference room.
Oh, sure. The mood, I guess, I'm out of time.